about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
Back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. Daliah, 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer. Big thanks to you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube. Click like and subscribe. So spring season is here, but that also means bee season. And 5 to 7.5% of the population is severely allergic to bees, meaning you could get stung by a bee and have a severe allergic reaction, go into anaphylaxis, stop breathing, and die. Most bee stings are mild, but now that flowers are beginning to bloom, bees like to get busy. That's what they do. So what is bee venom? So bee venom is a clear, colorless, bitter liquid, and it's injected into you when a bee feels threatened. It's comprised of various proteins and enzymes, can cause inflammation, but it can also prevent one's blood from clotting. These proteins that get injected into you can cause an allergic response in a human. And the venom is not necessarily by one little bee the fatal part of it. It's more of the allergic reaction. However, you can get a fatal dose of venom if you get stung by multiple bees. There was one report citing 90 stings for a small child could kill, and up to 600 stings for an adult, meaning if there's a beehive, stay as far away from that sucker. Running into a beehive or hanging out with a beekeeper could be deadly. So let's say you get stung by a bee. First and foremost, can you make sure your tetanus is up to date? Because bees can spread tetanus. So can ticks and other insects. But, make sure your tetanus is up to date. If you get stung by a bee, clean the area with soap and water. Use cool compresses, not ice. Use cool compresses to decrease swelling and pain. If it's a little itchy, you could use some antihistamines. There's antihistamine cream. There's corticosteroid creams. So for mild stings, we could manage them pretty easily. However, I don't know if you're going to go into a more severe reaction. If you do go into a more severe reaction, you need to get to an urgent care or hospital or call 911. Now, symptoms of a severe bee sting or bee reaction will be itching, difficulty swallowing, itchy throat, difficulty breathing, swelling of the lips, tongue, or throat, severe swelling of the sting area, dizziness, rapid heart rate, feeling faint, abdominal pain, chest pain, headache, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. Now, you don't necessarily have to have all these symptoms happen the second you got stung, but this could occur hours or even days later. If at all you think you're having a severe allergy, you have got to contact your medical provider right away, or a medical provider. So the best thing to do is to avoid getting stung by the bee, right? If you don't bug the bee won't bug you. There's truth to that. A bee has better things to do. The bee needs to pollinate the flowers and bring home honey, and they got their own business. They got, a date later that night. They Netflix to watch. They got stuff to do. They don't necessarily want to bug you. They'd rather collect their nectar and do what they need to do. But if you are sweet smelling with your perfume, flowery, sugary drinks are near you, vape scents, the bee may be confused and be walking around and, if exploring you. And if you get a little itch or tickle because you feel something near your neck and you start to hit it off, now you bugged the bee. So when outside, avoid walking barefoot. I've stepped on a bee and it hurt. It dropped me to the ground. Now, I don't know if I'm allergic to bees because that was my very first bee sting. And when you are allergic and you get a severe reaction, that's usually not the very first time because the immune system has never seen it. It's immunonaive. Once now my body recognizes, oh, okay, this is a bee sting, I have no idea how severe my body's going to react. And I was walking barefoot on the beach and I stepped on a bee. So don't walk barefoot. Use socks and shoes. Wear long shirts, long pants to cover exposed skin if you're going to be outdoors. Avoid wearing bright colors, but also avoid dark colors. Pale, non-vibrant clothes are the least attractive to bees. Bees may hide from the sun and predators and plants, trees, other objects. So don't be digging around plants and trees under objects, etc., because that's where bees could be hiding. If you do think you might be one of the unlucky ones who's severely allergic to bees, have an EpiPen on hand. The EpiPen is an auto-injector. It contains epinephrine, and you could use it when undergoing a severe allergic reaction. If you are allergic to insect or food and, you start to have hives and lip and facial swelling, difficulty breathing, nausea, vomiting, your blood pressure is dropping, rapid heart rate, you could go into cardiac arrest and you could die. So what epinephrine does is it stimulates the heart to increase the cardiac muscle contractility, helping therefore increasing your cardiac output, raising that blood pressure. It'll also relax the airways in the lungs so you can breathe easier. And it may stop the release of additional immune chemicals. So EpiPens are crucial if you think you're allergic. But, it is the springtime. I love looking at flowers. I love taking pictures of flowers. I think bees are adorable and I love what they do. But they're dangerous. And I think there was one gentleman years ago, this was before COVID, who got stung by a bunch of bees and it put him into, it gave him a heart attack. There was in 2016, a man from India who died of cardiac arrest 3 weeks after being stung by 50 bees. Now remember, 600 bees are lethal in terms of venom. It was 50 bees. But he went into Kunis syndrome, which is an exaggerated histamine release, causes blood vessels to constrict abnormally, put him into cardiac arrest. 1-877 Doc Daliah, don't go away. Dr. Daliah here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
At Hotshot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
Hotshot Secret Stiction Eliminator.
Stiction, that sticky friction, undermines the performance of diesel engines. Third-party ASTM testing verifies that Stiction Eliminator removes 2 times as much stiction than any alternative on the retail shelf. Stiction Eliminator is formulated to be left in the engine oil. It works as you drive.
Available at truck stops, Tractor Supply, O'Reilly's Auto Parts, and online at HotShotSecret.com. Hotshot Secret. Powered by science.
In a study, it was found that 33% of 44 herbal supplements had no trace of the advertised herb. Don't let that happen to you. Hi, this is Dr. Mitch. If you want to ensure quality, please go to TotalWellness.com. Supplements made for physicians only now available to you too. TotalWellness.com, helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOCDALI. All right. So this is interesting. Now, vaccines have obviously been a source of controversy for decades. One, they saved many, many lives. But two, there's been some concerns that there hasn't been a lot of transparency in terms of side effects. And if somebody wants to decline or delay a vaccine, there's not a lot of options for them. And so after the COVID vaccine debacle, which I'm very grateful we had a COVID vaccine, but the way they mandated it and people couldn't go to school and they fired our military and our nurses who were there from day one helping patients with COVID, parents and a lot of now Americans are starting to distrust vaccines as a whole. And I told you guys this back in 2021. If they do this wrong with the COVID vaccine, we're going to have parents pulling their kids out of school saying to hell with all the vaccines. And we are going to lose trust even faster than we already lost trust with Dr. Fauci and the NIH and everybody else. So we need to take a deep breath. We need to reset and figure out what it is that is going to be the safest moving forward to protect illnesses, protect against polio, which I am so grateful we have a vaccine for, to protect against tetanus, where one of my relatives had died of tetanus years ago before there was a vaccine, to protect against hepatitis, to protect against shingles, to protect against flu, COVID, etc. How are we going to move forward with that? Well, RFK Jr. wants to look at some of the concerns that parents have, and which is actually a smart thing to do. Because if parents are telling you they don't want the vaccines because there's too many, they're pro-vaccine, but they don't want to inject their child with too many vaccines. Well, one thing the HHS secretary and under the Trump administration wants to do is, well, can we come up with a universal vaccine that's safe? If parents don't want their child injected 6 times every 2 months, then do we have a different way to do these? Let's and I think a lot of parents would enjoy that. Remember how people lost their mind when they found out that after they got through the first 2 COVID vaccines, they were going to have more, possibly 1 every 3 to 5 months. And now, what are we seeing? We're seeing less than 20% of the population even look at the COVID vaccines. And so, I think we might have to look at, what could be a little bit more palatable when parents are concerned that there's so many vaccines. They don't know which vaccine has what side effects. They can't tell which would be the cause of what side effect. And so what a lot of parents are doing is saying, well, let me pick this vaccine, and then let me wait on all the others. And it's overwhelming. So one thing that, from what I understand, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and the Trump administration want to do is look at a universal vaccine. Another thing they're going to do are placebo trials. Now, I don't understand why media outlets are losing their minds over this, because placebo trials, as it pertains to medicines or vaccines, this is something we've been doing for a very, very long time. So what is a placebo? A placebo is a non-medicinal ingrediented medication that looks identical to the tested medication. And the reason why placebo-controlled trials are so ubiquitous in science is if you tell a patient, you know what, you're having a tough time sleeping, here's a pill. Take this pill, it's going to help you sleep, or we're going to see if it helps you sleep. They take the pill, they go, I fell asleep. And how do you know it wasn't placebo? I don't know if you guys remember The Birdcage. I love that movie with Robin Williams and Nathan Lane, where Nathan Lane is like, I need my Purin tablets. And so the chef who was their aide gave them the Purin tablets. And Robin Williams is like, what's going on? You are now drugging my wife with Purin tablets so she could perform. And he said, no, it's just aspirin with the A and the S scratched off. And so that was an example of placebo. Something that wasn't necessarily what was thought of as an anti-anxiety medication, but because it was an aspirin, somebody took it, thought they felt they were going to be fine. So placebo is done to ensure that you don't have that bias. And so what we do with medications are, and with a lot of medication trials is we do something called a double-blind placebo trial. So if it's single-blind study, the person handing out the medications to this test subject or this test subject know exactly what's in both, but there could accidentally be some bias. They might look a little different at the person. They might look at the medication differently. So a double-blind placebo is where the people handing out the medication, they don't know if it's the placebo or the dummy pill or the fake pill or the sugar pill or the drug. And then the person takes it and then they write down how did they feel. And then you look at what happened to the blood pressure or what happened to the cancer or what. Well, I don't know if they do it necessarily with cancer, but what happened with the anxiety or what happened for sleep or what happened with the mood. And then they take a look and they see, if the people getting the placebo said, wow, I did better. And the medication only worked a little bit better than placebo, then they publish that saying this was only slightly better than placebo. But if they noticed a 50% difference or a 35% difference, something significant, they're like, the placebo people who got placebo didn't necessarily feel the same thing. Then, all right, you have something there. And so birth control pills have placebos. We've been using placebos and birth control pills. People ask why. I wouldn't take my placebos. I didn't need to. I knew when to stop the pill. I just didn't want to take the little sugar pills or the extra pills. But the reason why they're there is if you need to be in the habit of taking a pill every day, but you have to have your bleed for your period, then the last 7 days of your birth control pack are placebo. They're non-hormone or ingrediented pills. So people take them, then they're on their placebo, they end up getting their period, and then the new pills come on, and then a couple days later their period stops, and now they get their hormones again. Me, I just knew which 7 days to not take it, and then I went and started my pack when I was supposed to. But we use placebos all the time. But I think everybody is, who is against Trump is freaking out about this, saying using placebo-controlled trials for the vaccine means some people may not get the vaccine. What would they get? Saline, like a salt water solution, sterile, safe. But people are concerned that if they're not getting the actual vaccine, if they're not getting the actual medication, they're getting placebo, what's going to happen to them? Well, a big question a lot of doctors have had is when you look at the COVID treatment, was it placebo or not? So some of these ivermectin studies and hydroxychloroquine studies, did people taking that feel it worked for them because of placebo or because it really worked? And so there's also been questions about the COVID vaccine. Did the COVID vaccine help because it really helped, or was there placebo? And so if all other medications are studied and birth controls have placebo, why aren't we also using placebo trials as it pertains to the vaccine? And we use that to ensure and help quantitate how much better the vaccine is. And then we could show the public, look, when you thought you were getting a flu vaccine and it was placebo, but people who got the flu vaccine did way better, then it's another piece of evidence that people are asking for. Now, they say that the HHS is going to invest $500 million developing vaccines that protect against multiple strains of viruses in a single dose. These universal vaccines, slated to be FDA approved by 2029, want to reduce the need for boosters like COVID, flu boosters, etc. Now, this is an exciting concept. I think, the more you tell somebody they have to get a shot, the more they feel they're risking side effects, either from the vaccine, either from the injection, either from Guillain-Barré, where your immune system fights your nervous system after an injection or after a cold or illness. So the idea of why don't we come up with one shot and you're done? So like, for example, when you guys got your polio vaccines, for now, thank God, you're done. You got your polio vaccination? Yes, it was a series, but you don't have to worry about getting another polio vaccine. Measles making a comeback, we might have to. And again, that's going to depend on how many of these individuals getting measles are vaccinated. We know the majority are unvaccinated, but we need to know the percent of number that are vaccinated. If vaccinated people are getting measles, well, we might need a booster. But people don't like boosters. They want the one and done. They want to know they got their vaccine and now they're good to go. Like I got the scar for the smallpox vaccine on my arm. It's ugly, but I don't have to worry about getting smallpox. It's nice. So, I'm not really sure where the controversy is. I think just, people just want to complain no matter what comes out of this administration. But, having research looking at how we could make vaccines easier, safer, more understandable and palatable to parents, I think is worth it. Because our goal is to reverse or to slow down infectious disease. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Don't go away.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
Diesel fuel cetane levels.
in many states, the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts. Due to a cleaner burn, there are less hydrocarbons and particulate matter in your exhaust. This reduces the blockage of your diesel particulate filter. Using Diesel Extreme generates 83% less DPF regeneration. The 6-in-1 Diesel Extreme formula also includes the most concentrated detergent on the market, lubricity enhancer, water demulsifier, rust and corrosion inhibitors, and a fuel stabilizer.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth wants to review the medical standards for recruits and for military enlistment. He is directing a comprehensive review of medical conditions that disqualify individuals from joining the military. This memo, according to the U.S. Department of Defense, addressed to senior Pentagon leadership, ensures recruits meet the high physical and mental standards required for service. This initiative responds to concerns about current medical waiver policies and their impact on military readiness. This is prompting a 30-day evaluation to refine enlistment criteria. This is titled Review of Medical Conditions Disqualifying for Accession into the Military. And the memo targets Department of Defense Instructions 6130.03, Volume 1, outlines medical standards for enlistment, appointment, or induction. It notes that waivers are currently permitted for conditions like schizophrenia, paraphilic disorders, congestive heart failure, chronic oxygen use. And he emphasized that while the desire to serve is admirable, individuals with such conditions are often unable to complete initial training or their first term of service, potentially compromising mission success and the safety of service members. He says applicants for military service must be physically and mentally able to perform their duties under the harshest of conditions without risk to themselves or others. This was in a video he posted on the Defense Department. He said the memo tasked the Undersecretary of Defense for personnel and readiness with identifying conditions that could be ineligible for waivers and those requiring approval from a military department secretary. Proposed updates for the instruction will be submitted to the approval within 30 days. So, he highlighted the need for clear, high, and uncompromising medical and mental standards to ensure readiness. They say service members need to be medically ready to fight, underscoring the goal to align standards with operational demands. Now, data shows a rise in medical waivers, with approximately 17% of 2022 recruits receiving them, which is up from 12% in 2013. The Navy alone issued 15,900 medical waivers in 2022, a significant increase from prior years. And the surge was partly due to health record system flagging more issues. And this has now raised concerns about readiness. So, according to the Department of Defense, studies indicate conditions like schizophrenia can worsen under military stress. Heart conditions like hypertension, congestive heart failure could limit physical performance, especially in deployment settings. Chronic oxygen use, often linked to severe respiratory issues, undermine service in high altitude or physically demanding roles. So the review also aligns with broader efforts to balance the recruitment needs, they say, with operational effectiveness. So they hope to ensure new service members that can withstand the rigors of service, enhancing safety and mission success. High standards equal lethality. And he said under President Trump, we've seen a huge surge of Americans who want to join a military with high, clear standards. So, this is, he's not wrong. But what we have ascribed to doing, is if somebody does want to serve, and God bless them for wanting to serve, but they have a condition that prohibits them from being deployed and being, boots on the ground, then they might get a job within the military, like a desk job, or work in intelligence, or work in, something else that is just as meaningful and necessary. But we have a huge civilian workforce. I think, 2 million civilian workforce? And the reason why we have the civilian workforces is because if there are individuals who really want to serve, okay, we need people in the military, and we don't necessarily want to lose military members, to doing all the other jobs that need to be done in the military. Okay, we don't need them answering phones. We don't need them doing the analytics. We don't need them necessarily doing the research. Okay, their military readiness is to fly the plane, to man the sub, to be deployed, to do the security, and these I think what they can do is, if you do have individuals that want to serve and help, but we have standards in terms of physical requirements, then they can be a part of the civilian workforce, if needed. And, right now it's a little bit of a mix. You have a lot of civilian employees that want to go military. You have a lot of military employees that want to be civilian or don't want to do them, and so, maybe we do need to have that demarc. If you're military, then you did boot camp. You were able to survive the physical stressors. It's interesting because with medical school, part of the reason why we had 36-hour shifts and we underwent such abuse by our older doctors. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's the right way to train. But the reason why we put up with it is because it was to build a resilience. And I'm not necessarily of that mindset. I don't think people should be hit at and yelled and screamed and demeaned and sleep deprived. And, I don't agree with that. Was a Full Metal Jacket when, one of the recruits kills himself. That's not, I think there's better ways to train. However, if you got through medical school and you got through that, then if there is a child who's a drowning victim or who sustained trauma, anybody who got through the training I got through is not going to hesitate. They're not going to crumble at their feet or start crying. They're going to jump in and do what needs to be done. There's a gunshot wound, if there's a mass casualty, we aren't going to be shell-shocked. We're going to be able to, at least jump in and do what we need to do because we've been trained to see it. There's a lot of individuals that can't look at the sight of blood. If they look at the sight of blood, they can't do it. Well, and it's funny because I had students who said they can't look at blood. I'm like, how did you get into medical school? All you're going to see is blood. I really worry when I hear young girls say they need to stop their periods because they can't look at blood. They get sick at the sight of blood. And I go, how are you going to have a baby? How are you going to take care of your child? You got to overcome that. Do you want to have kids later? Oh, yes, but just daddy will deal with it if they have a nosebleed. If you're going to be a parent, you need to be able to withstand. And maybe that's one of the reasons why women go through childbirth, from a nature standpoint, is because if you could get through that and how miserable and disgusting that could be, it's a beautiful thing, but it's very messy. Then you're not going to vomit every time your kid throws up or poops themselves, etc. You're going to be able to address it. So, we are not physically fit. When you watch those videos of these kids in the 1960s, you think it's a military recruitment video. No, it's high school PE. You're watching a high school PE video of these kids looking like they are military ready. Because in the 1960s, physical education was important. Making sure, making sure the future of America had physically fit young adults. And God bless anybody who wants to serve our military, even if they aren't physically fit. I think it is extremely admirable. But when they need all hands on deck, and they need to know that anybody in the military can survive without oxygen. The reason why people ask, why were diabetics not allowed in World War II? Why would they taste the urine to see if it was sugary? Why would they do that? Well, because the people with diabetes get dizzy. They faint. They need insulin. They need care. They would struggle in the middle. And anytime you have one of your fallen comrades, it now affects your ability to do your mission. 1-877 Doc Daliah. Hi guys, Dr. Daliah here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping. Addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdaliah.com. Check it out.
At Hotshot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems. For example,
Diesel fuel cetane levels.
the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hotshot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
Self-reliance. It's not a phrase we hear much in our culture these days. It might conjure up images of pioneers, the West, rifles, strapping men, and strong women. But what does it mean for us in today's world? The New American Magazine has just released its latest collector's edition, Self-Reliance, Foundation of Freedom. In it, the New American authors outline the necessity of self-reliance for a free people, tips for self-reliant living, and the importance of not giving up hope. This unique edition includes articles on the self-sufficiency of the founders, preparing for a worst-case scenario, firearms, financial self-reliance, the importance of community, and many other topics by expert writers. Now, for a limited time, the New American is offering a bundle of 3 collector's editions, Self-Reliance, The Great Reset, and Trump World, for just $19.95. Available at shopjbs.org. Visit shopjbs.org today.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Doc Daliah, 1-877 DOCDALI. So a question that keeps being brought up is, if we have an obesity crisis, a huge obesity crisis, and we also have a huge spending crisis in the government, is anybody going to look at, are we contributing from a government standpoint and a tax dollar standpoint to the obesity? Are we overfeeding people? Are we feeding people junk food and not healthy food? Why is obesity rising and we look gluttonous if the whole reason why we have to have the benefits is to make sure people are fed, getting the nutrition, and aren't starving? And so there's a little bit of a disconnect that people have been asking for years for us to look at. And so it looks like the Trump administration will be. According to Newsweek, Agriculture Secretary Brooks Rollins and Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. are working closely to reform the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Now, this was during yesterday's cabinet meeting at the White House. The partnership comes as, obviously, RFK Jr. wants to make America healthy again. We have multiple issues in terms of our food additives, our emulsifiers, the fats, the calories, and we're supposed to be supplementing the nutrition of individuals who are not getting the nutrition they need. They cannot afford food. Yet, are many of these individuals overweight? Are they using the money that taxpayers are giving to ensure that nobody starves in that family on junk food, on chips, soda pop, candy? So Newsweek reached out to the U.S. Department of Agriculture and Health and Human Services to find out more about what they're going to do as it pertains to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. And so, according to Newsweek, the Food and Nutrition Service, FNS of the USDA, oversees SNAP at the federal level. Any update to SNAP will obviously impact millions of Americans. Right now, 2023, 42 million Americans are utilizing SNAP. Benefits are funded entirely by the federal government. States are required to pay 50% of the administrative costs. In 2023, total federal spending on the program was $102.8 billion. When you look at that, you're like, wow, we must have a lot of Americans starving. Do we? Do we have 42 million Americans starving? We might. We do have a lot of people at poverty level. We know groceries are expensive. But then it should be very easy to ensure that this $102.8 billion is going to vegetables, to fruit, to fiber, to lean meat. Is it? At the local level, Newsweek says state agencies manage the program by determining household eligibility and distributing benefits accordingly. The program and how it administers its funds have raised some concerns among Republican lawmakers over potential waste and inefficiencies. Democrats are worrying that there's going to be potential program cuts. Now, Rollins and Kennedy told Trump in their updates that they're working very closely with one another on SNAP, which used to be called food stamps. Now it's a card, it's a debit card. So while you're buying your groceries, you use that debit card to knock off the price of the food, which is fantastic for families who are struggling and can't afford the vegetables and the meat and the bread and the staples and the milk and the eggs. But I've been in the grocery store and I've seen these cards and I take a little gander at what's in the cart. And I would not be feeding that stuff to my child if I was worried about their nutritional status or their health. And my tax dollars are paying for that. It should be very simple, where only the vegetables, the meat, the eggs, the healthy food gets the benefits. None of it should go to soda pop. None of it should go to chips. None of it should go to cookies. Now, I'm sure some Democrats will say, well, young kids need cookies. You're discriminating against some of the kids because they need to have cookies. Ask taxpayers if they want to pay for cookies. We could always give away cookies. The government could go to the Girl Scouts, say, we're going to buy cookies, and we are going to distribute them to certain families who want cookies. But SNAP is Supplemental Assistance Nutrition Program. The name says nutrition, which means anything that has no nutritional value should not be a part of SNAP. Now, currently, they say consumers can buy fruit, vegetable, meat, dairy products, bread, cereal, snacks, non-alcoholic beverages, and other items. These non-alcoholic beverages include sugary drinks. You are not supposed to be able to buy beer, wine, liquor, cigarettes, or tobacco with food stamps. You also can't buy pet foods and cleaning supplies. So you can't buy fruit, vegetables, but the snacks, the sugary cereals, the breads, the cookies, these are things that are getting covered on SNAP. And we don't want to see undernourished people fat and obese. It means we're doing something wrong. And I'm not, trying to be abrasive, but many individuals I'm seeing using these cards are overweight. Now, I'm assuming they're buying the vegetables and the meat and the food for their kids. But when I look at their cart and I see junk food, whoa. So I don't see how it's not bipartisan to get candies and soda and sugary snacks off SNAP. SNAP is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. We are going to assist you in giving nutrition. That's all it's supposed to be. There is nothing nutritious about a Cheeto. I'm sorry. Now, people are saying, oh, this is horrible. Oh, they're going to, hurt people with SNAP. There might be, the work requirements have to do with Medicaid. So people on Medicare are those who are physically unable to work or seniors. People on Medicaid are physically fit. If not, they get Medicare. But Medicaid are individuals that fall under the poverty threshold. So if the government's going to help them find work, that's a blessing. With SNAP, I don't think there's going to be work requirements for SNAP. If we want to supplement your nutrition, we should be able to give you vegetables and fruit and meat and work with farmers. But I'm sorry, we got to stop the cookies and the soda. It's ridiculous. And again, other countries are looking at us going, if we are having 42 million people malnourished, needing SNAP to supplement their nutrition, why is obesity rising? Why is diabetes rising? You would think they would be slim, eating fruits and vegetables and meat. You would think they would have, the SNAP recipients would have some of the best diets. As I said, I remember the 90s WIC program, we would just give out and the grocery store. You would grab the stalk of celery or the spinach, grab the eggs, grab the milk, grab the meat. You would go up to the cashier and they would not charge you for the meat and the milk and all that. But if you had junk food, you paid for that in your cart. I mean, that made more sense to me. Because I want to make sure these kids are getting vegetables. And if I find out that of these 42 million, the average child is not getting 9 to 5 fruits and vegetables a day, then what are we paying for? And if I get really mad and angry about it, I mean, and I'm not going to say this because I know people are going to freak out, but then I think the parents need to talking to evaluate if they're actually taking care of their children correctly. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Don't go away.
Did you know that healthy arteries make a gas? Yes, actually 3 known gases. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch, and nitric oxide is a gas that's readily made all day long to keep our arteries open by relaxing the blood vessel walls. By doing this, our circulation is increased, bringing blood, oxygen, and nutrients to every part of your body. Both age and poor diet can lead to a loss of this precious gas, and in turn, blood pressure can go up, energy can go down, and you can get tingling in your hands and feet. Well, our product, Ultimate Nitric Oxide, can easily help fix this lack of nitric oxide. Go to TotalWellness.com. That's TotalWellness.com, where we are helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.